Good morning, truth seekers. It is the morning of July 7th, 2026, and I have started drinking my coffee. So I'm a lot more alert than I thought I was going to be today. I already had a cup at home. This is going to be episode 1 of what is essentially a podcast. I have other videos up on my channel that are more on the edited side, and I'm going to continue to make those. But I have been advised to also have some, to get started, basically. This was already something I was thinking of doing, but I've been advised to just get started on having more of an informal, free-form type conversation. And alternate between that and the more edited videos. So that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's going to be me. Ideally, we're going to have guests here eventually. Ideally, I'm going to have like an actual studio. I have a room that's my studio, but it needs to be organized and decorated, and I'm hoping to move in less than a year anyway. So I don't know if my plans for that studio are really going to come to fruition. But today I'm in my car. I got to work extra early so that I could do this. Figured it would be the best use of my time and the best way to keep me focused on talking to you guys and not worried about everything else that I have to do. So I've got about 20 minutes with you guys. I figure that what I'm going to do, at least for the time being, for this podcast style thing, is just sort of talk about what's been on my mind this week. Mostly in terms of the types of content I've been consuming and what's been fascinating me in my own media use. So we'll start there. Alright, so back in May, we had the 3-year anniversary of an alleged incident of a family who claimed they saw aliens in their backyard. I was supposed to make a video about that and publish it on May 1st. But the day that I was supposed to sit down and film everything, we had some pretty catastrophic family stuff go down, and I ended up not being able to film that day. I have filmed pieces of it since then, but my focus has been off, and I've been so busy dealing with this family stuff that it's kind of been hard to really put it all together. I am going to work on pushing that out, though. But basically, this is something that I refer to as the UFO, the 2023... the Las Vegas UFO Incident of 2023. I've heard it referred to as other things, including the Las Vegas alien case. That is what Jim Quirk from the channel Quirk Zone calls it. To me, I don't know, the Las Vegas UFO Incident just makes more sense. But that is really interesting, and I've gone back and forth on whether I think it's a hoax or not. But the basic gist is that a couple of minutes before midnight on the last day of April, it was like, I think April 30th, there was an object that fell from the sky that was recorded on several cameras, including police body cam footage, and the police and the individuals that the police were speaking to commented on it. And a little bit after that, a 911 call comes in, and we have the full recording available thanks to a guy named Chris Lathrop, who I don't think he has his own channel, but he's been on Jim Quirk's channel before, talking about this. But he was able to get a hold of the full 911 call, which is, I think, about 10 minutes long. Can't remember exactly. Where this family calls in and reports seeing aliens in the backyard, or these creatures that look like aliens that are definitely not human. It's been kind of determined to be a hoax. The primary investigator who broke the story, his name is Doug Poppa. He initially claimed that he believed the family and then moved on to determining that it was in fact a hoax. And I understand why. From what I've seen of him, oh my goodness, I love this guy as a journalist. Never heard of him before. So essentially, he has a podcast of his own, the Doug Poppa Podcast. And in this podcast, he talks about corruption in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And he opens and closes each of his episodes with some cool, like, basically news footage from decades ago regarding him. And according to this news footage, he was a police officer who was ordered to be complicit in a cover-up of like a crime. Basically, this guy had been put in jail for murdering his wife, but it turns out that his wife had actually committed suicide and framed him for it. And she said that she was going to do it. There was like proof of this. And he refused to be complicit and told the truth anyway, and they brought it back to a retrial, and he ended up getting fired over it. But you could see all that if you go and watch one of his videos. There's different footage at the beginning and at the end, but if you go to the beginning of his podcast, you'll see it. You go to the end, you'll also see different footage regarding the same story. But I really, really like him as a journalist, and I think that he should have more of a following, honestly, and I'd like to see him on some podcasts, like being interviewed by people. I might reach out to him to ask if he'll let me interview him, but I think I want to wait until I'm a little bit bigger so that I can have something to show him. For like, hey, I'm not just a person who's into the Las Vegas alien thing, because I don't think that's what he wants to be known for. But his journalistic work seems really solid, and I'm not in this position where I'm agreeing with him on the fact that it's a hoax. I kind of leaned that way to begin with, and I've since changed my mind. I'm still looking into some things, tying some things together, but the more I look into it, I'm at a point where I've kind of stopped going back and forth as much, and I'm more just leaning towards it happened. And I'll cover all that when I make the more edited video talking about this. But I understand fully why he came to the conclusion it was a hoax, and I think that's something that's worth addressing. I won't get into that here, but that's something that's been on my mind, is just that whole incident, because we just hit the 3-year anniversary, and then also because I still haven't made that video, I keep thinking it over and sometimes going over my notes, but not actually making anything of it. But then in light of that, we've had the new Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure Day come out. Now, here's what I think is interesting about the movie Disclosure Day. Now, for background, I didn't watch the trailer and I didn't look at any of the reviews. I started to watch Jim Quirk talk about the movie because he went to go see it and he gave his review. And in the beginning of his video, he said, I didn't look at any of the other reviews because I didn't want it to taint my perspective. I just wanted to go into it with a fresh mind. And I'm like, that's a good idea. That's what I'm going to do. So I turned off his video, saw it in the theaters with my husband. I saw it again on Thursday after work, just so I could gather notes so that I could talk about it. I'm hoping to make a more detailed video on... Well, I was hoping to make a more detailed video on that, but I might just cover the gist of what I want to say in this one. But here's the idea behind Disclosure Day, right? So it's a movie about aliens. It's by Steven Spielberg, same guy who brought us E.T. and what's it called? Like Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind? I don't remember what it was. They're both older movies, I think, both from the 80s. E.T. might be from the 90s, actually. I'm not sure. But those movies are a little different than Disclosure Day, in that Disclosure Day kind of reflects more of the current conversation about aliens and UFOs and the government, in terms of like it reflects what people in the UFO community are talking about right now. Now, when I was growing up, I wasn't interested in alien media. I thought it was kind of boring. I liked some stuff that had to do with aliens, like the movie Alien with Sigourney Weaver. That was a good movie. But I never liked, like, the classic old school, like, ooh, aliens from outer space, flying saucers, abductions. Like, I just didn't care for it. I kind of thought it was boring. I also thought that that stuff was obviously fake, and that people who believed that stuff were stupid or crazy. And that if aliens were real, they were out there somewhere, but not here on Earth, and they weren't anything like they are in the movies. I ended up changing my mind about that. In either 2015 or 2016, my mind started opening to the possibility of the classic old school alien. And by 2018, 2019, I'd started more leaning into the probability that they actually existed. And within the last 1 to 3 years, I've become more strongly convinced that this stuff is real. And the details of why I believe that are a video for another time. But with Disclosure Day, I kind of looked at it through a different lens, because instead of looking at it as pure fiction, I now looked at it in terms of this has a lot of truth to it. And whether how much of it is true and how much of it is alleged to be true but isn't, and how much of it is actually fake, gets like a little bit like there's a lot to sort out there. But I think that regardless of what's true, what's allegedly true, and what's absolutely pure fiction, I think it's worth talking about how this plays into the current conversation around UFOs. Because Disclosure Day talks about what it would be like if the public were informed of non-human intelligence here on Earth. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the UFO community of people who either believe this stuff is true or think there's a good chance this stuff is true about when Disclosure Day is coming and what Disclosure Day will look like. Is the government going to tell us all in one go that aliens are real, that they have recovered alien spacecraft that we're holding on to? And if it does happen all at once, when's it going to happen? And is it going to happen in pieces where they just drip us little bits of information, which is pretty much what's happening now. Without getting too much into detail, like, I have reason to believe through my own professional work that the existence of unexplainable flying vehicles that defy the laws of aviation exist, and that the government's not covering this up. It's common knowledge. And aliens are a bit of another story. That is, in my personal opinion, they're true, but I can't say that so much with my professional opinion. So that's a big piece of it. Is Disclosure Day going to happen all at once? Is there just going to be like pieces of disclosure that are drip fed to us? Is it even going to come from the government, or is it going to come from people like us, or maybe people not like us who just aren't the government, who are putting this out to the public? But then there's also the discussion around religion. So one of the main characters of the movie, her name is Jane, and she is like the love interest of the other main character, like one of the main characters, whose name is Daniel. And Daniel worked for a company called Wardex, which is a company that worked with the Department of Defense, now known as the Department of War, and it safeguarded the secret of non-human intelligence, of alien life, of recovered spacecrafts, and attempts to like reverse engineer the alien spacecraft, which basically means to try and figure out how to build it ourselves based on what we have. There's somebody in the car next to me. I'm trying to not be super obvious that I'm making a video. I hope he doesn't see in here. So Daniel works for this company called Wardex, but now he is working in conjunction with a guy named Hugo, who is coordinating this effort to disclose to the public everything that Wardex and the Department of Defense / Department of War has been covering up. I'm going to say Department of Defense because that's what it's called in the movie, but in real life, the Department of Defense was recently changed to the Department of War by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. So, for the purpose of this video, we're calling it the Department of Defense. Anyway, so Wardex, Department of Defense, they are working to keep this stuff secret, and Daniel is working with a guy named Hugo, who is coordinating an effort to disclose to the public everything that's being kept secret. So Daniel has all this information. He's on the run. He's trying to hide. He's just following what Hugo tells him to follow. And his girlfriend, not girlfriend, whatever, love interest, gets mixed up in all this. Now, she used to be a nun. And there's this whole thing of like, you know, she lost her faith, and oh no, she didn't lose her faith. She just lost her belief that, like, God, I took notes. Hold on. This is my notebook. I'm very proud of how I decorated the front. It feels very me. Okay. She didn't, so he's like, Daniel tells Jane, you lost your faith. She's like, I didn't lose my faith. I lost my calling. I'm just looking through my notebook to see the stuff about Jane, what she said, because basically everything that mentioned faith in this movie I took a note of. I mean, I took a note of like basically everything in the movie, line by line. The kind old man who was sitting next to me would like watch me take notes sometimes, and then at the end he was like, so did you get everything? But yeah, I was just furiously taking notes the whole time. And I did not eat junk food at the movie theater. I'm so proud of myself. Okay. So at one point, Jane starts arguing with Daniel. He shows her the contents of what he has. And she's like, well, you can't tell this to people. It'll destroy their faith. And it's not for you to force this truth on everyone. If this truth is not, pardon me, the guy, he looked at me. I think he saw what I was doing. He looks old. So I'm hoping that he's not high ranking. And my vehicle's pretty distinct, so I'm hoping he doesn't recognize me in the future and like yell at me or something. Because I'm sitting in a parking lot with limited parking spaces. But I am where I'm supposed to be, and I'm supposed to go inside in a few minutes, so... And I was doing work stuff on my phone before I started filming, so it's okay. Alright. I think there's other spots available in the parking lot right now anyway. Not sure. Okay. Focus. So he's basically like, it's the truth, I have to tell people. And she's like, well, people will stop believing. God is essential to human society. People can't handle a supreme being dropped on them when we've taught them to believe in a supreme being. Like, we've taught people that God is a supreme being, and now you want to actually show them real supreme beings? So I am saying this with, like, a tone in my voice, because I'm very irritated with the character and the way she presented things. If we're just diving into the story itself, like, I found her frustrating. If we're looking at the story on the bigger picture, at the larger level, I can kind of understand why she's there, because she's there sort of to like represent a part of represent a big part of the conversation around religion, because a lot of people don't want disclosure, apparently. I haven't looked into their arguments too closely for the people who believe there shouldn't be disclosure. I've mostly just heard people talk about it, so that's why I say apparently, because I'm trying to be careful, because I don't want to like talk down on a perspective that I haven't bothered trying to really understand. But within the story, I kind of found this character annoying, and then outside of the story, I think it makes sense that they put her in, because the discussion of disclosure and religion is like a big one in the community these days. But she's like, yeah, so there's gonna be chaos if you tell everybody about all this. So that's an and then there's a point in the movie where she ends up calling a nun that she worked under, or like had mentoring her. I don't understand how convents work. I've just been calling it a nunnery, honestly, but I don't want to call it a nunnery if it's actually a convent, but I don't know, because maybe there's different stuff. Maybe there's convents, and maybe there's like schools. So to me, I just use nunnery as a way of saying place where nuns are, because I'm not positive that convent is the right word. So let's skip ahead. I'm gonna have to leave here in like a few minutes, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up. Okay, so she calls the nun, and she's like, does God love only us, like Genesis is the first book of the Bible. The Bible comprises of multiple books, Genesis being the first one. So does God love only us? Genesis says that we're his supreme creation. And then she says in response, the nun says in response, on earth. It says we're his supreme creation on earth. I don't recall anywhere in Genesis, by the way, that says that anything about God's supreme creation. The only thing I see is that he created man, male and female. Man means human. He created man in his own image. And that he also created other beings, angels and stuff like that. So I don't know what this talk of supreme being is. Whatever. We can Google this if we want to. But she's like, oh, there are others? And the nun is like, I think so. Why would he create only us in this big universe? A very common viewpoint among a lot of Christians. So she's like, oh, like, would it be bad if it turns out that there's non-human intelligence to faith? And the sister's like, no. And Jane's like, what if society collapses? And then the nun says, I think you lost your faith in people, not God. So basic idea is you're not scared of people finding out about aliens because it challenges your faith in God. You're scared because it challenges your faith in people. I'm not sure what to make sense of her whole faith journey. I think she ends up coming around because of this. So basically, we know that she didn't lose her faith. She lost her calling. We know that she believes that, allegedly that these aliens are supreme beings, and that actual supreme beings throw a challenge at God, who we've trained everyone to be supreme beings. Also, there's nothing there about religion being true. It's all about how will society take it if we find out religion isn't true. And she's like, oh, but it totally can fit with religion, which I agree, by the way. But to make it out like it's, to me, it's about what's true. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian because I believe the Bible's true. Not because I want to believe it, not because it makes me a good person. I do think it helps me become a good person, and I'm comfortable with my Christian beliefs, but that's not why I'm a Christian. So I don't give a fuck if it makes me a better person, or if I like believing it, or how it impacts society. If it's not true, it's not true. And if it is true, then there's nothing to be worried about if aliens are also real. So, but yeah, I now have to go into work. That's all I gotta say. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.